Hey guys, today I'm going to be reading chapter 35 and 36 of the Tale of Despereaux. So where we left off, Mig had gone down into the dungeon and she had, not knowing, she had accidentally brought Despereaux back up with her. And she had gone to the kitchen to talk to the cook, and Despereaux had fallen out of the napkin that was on the tray she brought up, and he had disappeared, but Mig had accidentally chopped off on purpose, she had chopped off his tail. So, chapter 35, The Knight in Shining Armor. Despereaux was pondering the reverse of that question. He was wondering not what he would do with his tail, but what would he do without it? He was sitting on a bag of flour high atop a shelf in the pantry, crying for what he had lost. The pain in his hindquarters was intense, and he wept because of it. But he also cried because he was happy. He was out of the dungeon. He had been recalled to life. His rescue had happened just in time for him to save the Princess P from the terrible fate that the rat had planned for her. So Despereaux wept with joy and with pain and with gratitude. He wept with exhaustion and despair and hope. He wept with all the emotions a young, small mouse who has been sent to his death and then been delivered from it in time to save his beloved can feel. Reader, the mouse wept, and then he lay down on the sack of flour and he slept. Outside the castle, the sun set, and the stars came out one by one, and then they disappeared and gave way to the rising sun, and still Despereaux slept. And while he slept, he dreamt. He dreamt of the stained glass windows and the dark of the dungeon. In Despereaux's dream, the light came to life, brilliant and glorious, in the shape of a knight swinging a sword. The knight fought the dark, and the dark took many shapes. First, the dark was his mother, uttering phrases in French. And then the dark became his father, beating the drum. The dark was Furlough, wearing a black hood and shaking his head no. And the dark became a huge rat, smiling a smile that was evil and sharp. The dark, Despereaux cried, turning his head to the left. The light, he murmured, turning his head to the right. He called out to the knight. He shouted, "Who are you? Will you save me?" But the knight did not answer him. "Tell me who you are," Despereaux shouted. The knight stopped swinging his sword. He looked at Despereaux. "You know me," he said. "No," said Despereaux, "I don't." "You do," said the knight. He slowly took the armor off his head and revealed nothing, no one. The suit of armor was empty. "No, oh no," said Despereaux. "There is no knight in shining armor. It's all just make-believe, like happily ever after." And in his sleep reader, the small mouse began to cry. Chapter 36, What Mig Carried. And while the mouse slept, Roscuro put his terrible plan into effect. Would you like to hear, reader, how it will all unfold? The story is not a pretty one. There is violence in it, and cruelty too. But stories that are not pretty have a certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as you well know, having lived in this world long enough to have figured out a thing or two for yourself, cannot always be sweetness and light. Listen, this is how it happened. First, the rat finished once and for all the job he had started long ago. He chewed through Gregory's rope, all the way through it, so that the jailer became lost in the maze of the dungeon. Late at night, when the castle was dark, the serving girl Miggery Sow climbed the stairs to the princess's room. In her hand, she carried a candle, and in the pockets of her apron were two very ominous things. In the right pocket, hidden in case they should encounter anyone on the stairs, was a rat with a spoon on his head and a cloak of red around his shoulders. In the left pocket was a kitchen knife. the same knife that Miggery Sow had used to cut off the tail of a certain mouse. These were the things, a rat and a knife and a candle, that Mig carried with her as she climbed up, up, up the stairs. "Gore," she shouted to the rat. "It's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, yes," whispered Roscuro from her pocket. "It is quite dark, my dear." "When I'm princess," began Mig. "Shh," said Roscuro. "May I suggest that you keep your glorious plans for the future to yourself? And may I further suggest that you keep your voice down to a whisper? We are, after all, on a covert mission. Do you know how to whisper, my dear?" "I do," shouted Meg. "Then please," said Roscuro, "please institute this knowledge immediately." "Gore," whispered Meg. "All right." "Thank you," said Roscuro. 1 second. "Thank you," said Roscuro. "Do I need to review with you again our plan of action?" "I got it all straight right here in my head," whispered Meg, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Roscuro. "Perhaps, my dear, we should go over it again, one more time, just to be sure." "Well," said Meg, "we go into the princess's room, and she will be sleeping and snoozing and snoring, and I will wake her up and show her the knife and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her," said Roscuro. "No, I won't, because I want her to live so that she can be my lady in waiting when I become the princess." "Exactly," said Roscuro. "That will be her divine comeuppance." "Gore," whispered Mig. "Yes, her divine comeuppance." Mig had, of course, no idea what the phrase divine comeuppance meant, but she very much liked the sound of it, and she repeated it over and over to herself until Roscuro said, "And then?" "And then," continued Mig, "I tells her to get out of her princess bed and come with me on a little journey." "Ha!" said Roscuro, "a little journey. That is right. I love the understatement of that phrase. A little journey. Oh, it will be a little journey. Indeed it will." "And then," said Mig, who is now coming to her favorite part of the plan, "we take her to the deep downs, and we give her some long lessons in how to be a serving girl, and we gives me some short lessons in how to be a princess. And when we is all done studying up, we switch places. I gets to be the princess, and she gets to be the maid. Gore." Reader, this is the very plan that Roscuro presented to Mig when he first met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. No one would ever, not for one blind minute, mistake Mig for the princess or the princess for Mig. But Miggery Sow, as I pointed out to you before, was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And reader, too, she wanted so desperately to become a princess. She wanted, oh, how she wanted. And it was because of this terrible wanting that she was able to believe in Roscuro's plan with every ounce of her heart. The rat's real plan was, in a way, more simple and more terrible. He intended to take the princess to the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon. He intended to have Meg put in chains on the princess's hands and her feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing, laughing princess there in the dark forever. So a plan is unfolding, and Roscuro and Miggery Sow, they're working together. Meanwhile, Despereaux is sleeping in the kitchen pantry, and will he save the day? Do you think there will be a happily ever after? We will have to wait and see.